Okay, so I'm David Whitmarsh. Let me just make sure we're recording. I'm David Whitmarsh, CEO of Whitmarsh Consulting Group. We have Fletcher Winbush from Winbush and Associates. He's got a number of companies that focus around the recruiting space, and we're really looking forward to walking you through some of the issues facing HR and staffing folks when it comes to frontline hiring. So welcome, Fletcher.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me, David. Yeah, I mean, I'll give a little introduction. Our company, Winbush and Associates, and then we have another company called the Hire Talent. Winbush and Associates is a traditional search firm, and I really spent my entire life thinking about talent acquisition and how to recruit. I actually spent 5 years running a commercial dish machine company. I hired a lot of frontline workers, blue collar workers, and faced the challenges in that sector. And we really were very successful in that business. We took the worst performing business unit in the country out of 100 to number in the top, 3, arguably, with all metrics being equal. And a lot of that was done through hiring and being successful in hiring. Our other company, the Hire Talent, is a hiring HR tech company. So we offer 50 different tools to help in hiring. So everything from applicant tracking to performance hiring software, one-way video interviews, reference checking, to 30 plus different hiring assessments. So screening tools to evaluate and screen candidates in the hiring process, and a lot of recruitment automation, and even more now tools starting to be fueled and powered by AI. So collectively, our suite of companies, products, and services, the way I like to sort of characterize that is we solve hiring, period, right? Whatever the problem is, whatever the challenge is, no matter how hard it is, no matter whatever you're dealing with, I don't throw the weirdest, craziest thing at me as we go through this discussion. Please feel free to use the chat and drop in a question, throw in a scenario. David, you can interrupt me and make sure I address those. But I don't care how challenging it is. There is a solution to the problem. Some solutions are incredibly easy. Some take a little more effort, but there's always a solution to whatever the problem is that you're having in hiring. And again, it often for us comes back to one of the 3 kind of service areas we're at. Everything we do leads with kind of coaching, executive education, consulting. So we do a lot of free coaching, a lot of webinars, a lot of events, a lot of speaking engagements for SHRM or entrepreneur groups, things like that. And everything we do comes packed full of content and things like that. We do retained search and fractional talent acquisition. It's great for folks that are making several hires in a quarter or many hires a year. It's significantly less expensive than many cases even having an in-house recruiter, but definitely way cheaper and way more effective than using staffing agencies. And then we have the recruitment automation software that is packed full of 50 plus tools to attract and assess folks. And some cases we combine all of these together, particularly with the fractional talent acquisition. Our clients get all 3 of these services built right in. We do large consulting engagements for companies that are just want to use their existing tech or existing tools and existing team, come in and coach and train those folks. Or a lot of times it's maybe smaller organizations that are implementing their first HR and recruiting tech stack, and we're helping with that. Or clients are using off the shelf one of our assessment tools, which we just did a webinar there. So today, particularly with frontline workers, we really want to develop what I'll call a AAA repeatable method to attract, assess, and assimilate folks into your organization. So these are really the 3 pillars of hiring. I think it's often overlooked. On training and onboarding, how you bring people into your organization is just as important of how you attract them, and how you assess them is just as important as the other 2 things. So hiring is not just about running ads and getting candidates, right? It's about how you evaluate and process those candidates through to a successful hire, and how you on and train board and on those people and get them into your culture of success. each one of these pieces are equally important. So we're going to talk a lot about the first two. The second one is kind of a more complex subject, but it is important, particularly when you're dealing with frontline workers, any kind of trade, skill trade, or just any kind of specialized worker, or just any of these kind of frontline, it could be hospitality, restaurants, logistics, light industrial, construction, service technicians of all different types. All of these are dealing with different types of problems. So we can't find high quality people is what people tell us all the time, right? Because the labor market is tight. There's not enough skilled, experienced people in our industry. You see that a lot in healthcare and in construction and the trades. They don't make enough of these people, period. They're too reliant on staffing agencies and contingent recruiters. I've had clients tell me they spend over $500,000 or $1 million a year just in staffing agencies alone. That's just ridiculous. Like, stop, don't do that. My biggest beef is staffing agencies. The quality of hires tend to be very, very poor, right? So, there's a less expensive, an easier way. You can do this yourself, or you can, engage a fractional talent acquisition team to do this more effectively. But the hiring process is chaotic. Hiring managers aren't engaged or involved, or it's inconsistent. Hiring results are inconsistent. You're going to see that in high turnover, right? Also, feedback, from employees, as well as hiring managers not happy with the quality of hires, or the new hires not happy with their new job, right? So if you're in HR, you're all probably overwhelmed. I don't think I've ever met an HR person who's not overwhelmed, wearing way too many hats. So any kind of tools that you can use to, make your life a little easier, streamline processes, create a process, and get other people involved in that process, and hold them accountable to their role in that process, all helps in solving hiring for frontline workers. Ultimately, you don't have the time to do the work needed to find the right person. And again, it's all a symptom of having a process that's not as repeatable, or lacking a repeatable process to consistently produce high quality hires, right? So what are the keys to creating a repeatable system to attract, assess, and assimilate people into your organizations, right? So it all begins with recruitment marketing, right? So if you are not attracting enough people, then you're going to be settling for the best of the worst. Or maybe you've had a hiring manager say, you bring 3 people through the hiring process as finalists, and you're just going to decide from one of those 3 people, right? Well, those 3 people maybe you shouldn't hire any of them, right? And that's generally due to a lack of talent pool, or the inability to process the talent pool, which we'll talk about in how you assess your talent pool. So the market is shifting a little bit. Just about overnight, if you're not getting enough candidates overnight, we can solve that problem through enhancing the recruitment marketing program. And that is to attract more active candidate sources. Passive candidate sources is a key piece here. We got to go after that. One of the keys to going after passive candidates is your employee referral program. So I know most organizations have an employee referral program. If you are not making, 30% or more of your hires are not coming from employee referrals, then you probably want to take a look at your employee referral program. If you're hiring frontline workers, employee referral program is going to be your number one lever for driving more hires, but the quality hire will be substantially better. There's a study done by Silk Road. 87% of hires made from a referral were considered high quality by the hiring manager, versus ones coming from active sources like people applying to job boards and things like that. Hovers somewhere between 70 to 50% fail rate. But we're going to talk about how we can deal with active candidate sources to improve and reduce that fail rate. And that fail rate can be reduced by 90% in some cases, right?
Wow.
So, 7 out of 10 of your new hires don't make it a year or are considered not high quality. You can reverse that to somewhere between 7, 8, or 9 out of 10 considered high quality through better assessment program. But we need to have a big enough pool. That means we need hundreds of candidates into our pool in order to sift through the bad to get to the good. And we need a system for managing that, right? In some cases, in many cases, especially when you're dealing with specialized workforces, so like construction trades, healthcare, things like that, management type staff, things like that, like engineers, anybody who has a highly specialized set of skill sets, then we also need to have a system for passive candidate sources, right? All of that begins with implementing and establishing a very strong employer brand. This is easier to do than you might think. That then becomes your recruitment marketing stack. So creating the content to share your employer brand. And when you combine those two, those become a employer value proposition. So a few really key pieces to this equation is, one, you got to have a killer career page. There's a lot you can do there. And it's, again, a lot easier than you might think it is. We build these career pages instantly for clients, and then we build advanced ones for clients who are really ready to take the next step and tell better stories ultimately, right? Video, Gen Z, millennials, you name it. Everybody would rather consume video content these days. So we create these recruitment marketing videos for folks. We do this for our clients, and we have a little service that we charge $100 to create a recruitment marketing video, and it's turnkey. It takes the organization 5 minutes a person, and then we do all the work and create the videos. But when doing videos, it's really important to tell stories. Tell stories about the impact that the job will have on the people who are doing it. How does it affect their lives? How does it affect their career advancement? How does their work affect their customers and their customers' lives? And I'd like to use video to tell a story in and throughout the hiring process. It has a huge impact in keeping high quality candidates engaged in your hiring process. So this is one of the key reasons why video is so important, because we can leverage it in and throughout the hiring process to keep those ideal candidates there. And if you're dealing with frontline workers, you all know the no-show rate, they don't show up for interviews, they don't show up for second interviews, they don't respond to messages, they don't show up for their first day of work. Video is a great way to reduce those no-show or kind of false start type situations, particularly with frontline workers. Employee reviews, important component here. If you've already got bad reviews on Glassdoor and Indeed, then we want to start to work systematically to improve the narrative there and address those reviews as well. These first three things ultimately become your employer value proposition, your messaging that is sprinkled throughout your advertisements, through all of the content that you put out there into the world, and then social content. And social hiring is really important here for frontline workers, especially Facebook and Instagram. Can be big sources of high volumes of candidates. And so we want to work on getting our employer branding, telling our story, telling our employer value proposition. And that story, again, is helping people understand the quality of life, the career journey, how people grow and develop within the organization, and how they make an impact in the customer's life. So when we tell those stories, and then we begin to incorporate those stories into all of these things, our career pages, our reviews, the video content, the messaging that we send when we ask people to show up for an interview or schedule a call, in our advertisements, in our social contact, makes a big impact in both increasing the volume and the quality of applicants that you get into this process, particularly on this inbound side. It's also absolutely critical for your employee referral program. One of the keys to a successful employee referral program is you need to arm your workforce with these messages, this content. You give them social posts, you give them videos, you write the messaging for them, and then you remind them over and over and over again. And you begin to create a culture of referrals. And so it is a long game, but in a relatively short period of time, if you concentrate on this over the course of a few months, you can really build out a robust employee referral program. But you need this stack to arm and to enable your workforce with these messages and these stories and this content that they can share with their friends, their previous coworkers, their family members who might be interested in coming to work, right?
Fletcher, if I could just jump in for a
Yeah.
second there, it's really interesting that you say that. And I'll give you a little story. There's an engineering, big giant engineering company in Canada, in Montreal, that has a bit of a bad reputation. I'm not going to name it, but I was working with a recruiter, and they were having issues getting engineers, right? And it's not the place you want to be. And then so we were trying to tell them that their job postings that they put out were basically all about, the company, and there was
Demand,
nothing
it's
in
like a
it
demand line.
for them. And
Yeah.
so I did a little research. We went through 50 companies, and looked at some of the different uh, job boards, or job pages on these companies, and 46 out of the 50 basically had nothing to show the employer, what would be in it for them, other than the assumption that there's a paycheck at the
Yeah.
end of it.
Yeah.
So it's a real problem. And to tell you the truth, I was surprised you touched on it. So congratulations.
Yeah, this does take time. It takes a little bit of effort. Again, we support folks by helping them build this content out and creating this content. And again, video is the key to that. We can extract these stories, we can extract this content out of an organization. Where they can have 10, 20, 100 people complete these interviews, these video interviews, right? And it takes the individual 5 minutes to do, like no time
Mhm.
at all, right? And then they don't have to do anything at all, right? We go through and we extract the key highlights, the common themes, the threads, and we piece that all together into messaging that both is video, written, goes on the career page, goes on the ads, goes on the social, goes on the employee referral newsletters, into your just your corporate newsletter, right? Like if you're a large organization, you're sending out a corporate newsletter to your customers and to your vendors. Well, your customers are a source of if loyal customers are a source of great hires, right? They love your product, they
100%.
love your service, right? But they may not really understand what it means to work at your company, right? And telling that through stories as opposed to the traditional job description, which I like to, I jokingly call as often a demand letter.
Mhm.
You read your job ad and it feels like a demand letter, then stop, just stop, right? The other thing I encourage HR and recruiting staff to do is go through your own hiring process. Pretend to be a candidate, like go submit a resume. What happens next? You have to go through a workday application and refill all your information all over again and answer questions that really are not all that helpful or beneficial. So that's, actually, I don't have a bullet point on this, but the number one thing you can do is remove the barrier to entry. You are not obligated to make somebody complete a 20-minute application in order to accept their resume as a candidate. You may need to have them complete an application at a certain point in the process. It should be the same point in the process, but it does not have to be at the point of somebody sending a resume. And what a lot of organizations do is they don't leverage the tools that are available to them to make it easy for people to apply. So all these big job boards, right? Indeed, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, etc. You pick the job board. These are the biggest ones. If you're not on these 3 job boards, then you need to be on the ones you're not on. That's tip number 1, right? So if you're, I hear a lot of people that are only on Indeed. I just talked to a massive company yesterday. They only use Indeed. We just did a study. 43% of hires came from ZipRecruiter last year with our client base. 40%, 3% less than ZipRecruiter came from Indeed. Look, I was baffled. Look, Indeed's great. Indeed still drove a higher volume of applicants. It was like 50% of applicants came from Indeed and 37% or 35% came from ZipRecruiter. But the number of hires actually was higher from ZipRecruiter than Indeed. And I was shocked by that. Now that is from a sample size of people who are only using the free postings on these 3 job boards. So when you leverage free Indeed, free LinkedIn, and free ZipRecruiter, which our Discover platform helps with, and most ATSs might help with, if they're set up correctly, that's the results that they got. Now, you sponsor, you might get slightly different results, things like that. Now, you still get a lot more applicants from Indeed, but again, the number of hires was 43%, 40%, and it was like 11, almost 12% from LinkedIn. So that's substantial, right? So if you say, well, I don't get that many applicants, or it's only 10% of hires come from LinkedIn, well, 10% is a needle moving number. You need to be on it. Right?
Yeah. I'm curious to go back and using what you just said, to go take a look at them and see which ones have better flow in the process to whether or not that accounts to an abandon rate.
Well, we work with over 2,000 organizations. So, most of them follow our recipe or some semblance of it, right? But all of these are set up so that people can do quick applies. Right. So it makes it easy for the person to say, hey, I want to submit a resume, right? And so that increases the volume of applicants. It removes the barrier to somebody saying, hey, I'm interested in working for your company. It creates a different kind of problem. Well, okay, well, I got to sort through lots of resumes. Well, we deal with that in lots of different ways through recruitment automation and through again, these stories and these videos we tell to encourage people to go through an assessment process. So they're typically candidates on the back end, which we'll talk about, are going through some sort of an assessment test, behavioral aptitude, skill, or you're going through an automated reference checking process or one-way video interviews. So they're going through a process to help us, weed some of those folks out. Now, some organizations, they need to hire lots and lots of people. So the more applicants, the better. They're screening those applicants. AI can be very helpful in that if you've programmed it correctly, and we help organizations really hone in how they screen resumes using AI. Or they're just using humans to screen through, and humans are far more biased than AI is. So I don't know, I'm a little partial to AI because it's just so much more objective. People think it's biased, but humans are like grossly biased. It's like awful. We've done the studies. It is just ridiculous. You put a human evaluates a resume, their bias come into play 90% of the time.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? So you either got to train the people screening resumes really, really, really well, and having candidate scorecards is a tool for that. We'll talk about later. But getting those people really well trained to reduce bias is super, super important. But nonetheless, you want to make it easy for people to submit a resume. Low quality, high volume, right? Takes a little bit of effort to get diamonds in the rough, and there's a lot of techniques there. Employee referrals. So these are sources for inbound type candidate sources, right? So great for frontline hiring, great for administrative, and any kind of low kind of under $50,000 a year, under $60,000, $70,000 a year type jobs, right? Employee referrals, high quality, low effort. Once you get the program up and running, it really is truly a low effort thing. But it is a habit. that you need to build. You need to build a culture of employee referrals. I can't emphasize enough, but the result is, massive study by Still Grove is 87% of those people hired through referrals were considered good to great hires, right? So it lowers, the time that it takes to screen, because you get a referral, you move those people right in the hiring process, it lower turnover, better hire quality, really, really big benefits. But you might only make up, 10 to 50% of your hires, depending on how well you run your program. Again, if you're less than 30% of your hires coming from employee referrals, then, you really want to look at that again. Social channels are fantastic. These two both feed into social channels. So employee referrals, having a good social content to give your existing employees to share on social is just a fantastic way to supercharge your employee referral program, right? With AI, we're doing some phenomenal things in terms of creating way better content. Nothing is worse, and I wish I had an example of this than I should screenshot of this, but everybody's seen the job post where it's like this gray box and it's like the job title and it's like this social post and there's like no commentary, no images, no nothing, that it's just the post, right? That somebody reposted, right? It looks terrible. Like, why would I stop scrolling Instagram to click that, right? Or stop on LinkedIn to click that? So you definitely want to spice this up with visuals. You could use stock images. You could use the videos that you create. You could just use pictures of, team and outings and events that go on. And then you want to throw in some additional of that employer value proposition content. Again, leveraging AI to slice and dice and to rework and rewrite a lot of that content to make it shorter, more concise, add in hashtags, all that good stuff is something you can do. But so it can be higher effort. Now I say high cost. It's great for volume hiring. It's great for trades and blue collar workers to start running paid ads, particularly on Facebook and Instagram. We did this for a very, very large carpentry company where they made over 100 hires in 6 months through running Facebook ads. And so there's a couple of keys there. One, you got to get your target audience right. Facebook will help you with that. There's tools built into Facebook to get the audience. Two, if we didn't do the first step of getting our employer value proposition, our marketing message down just right, leveraging. So basically you have that you have your content, you got your videos, you get your images, you got your messaging, you get all that right. Then you can start running ads. You can collect those leads right there on Facebook, and you can also send them to a high impact landing page, which is a career page for these types of jobs, and collect those folks right into your applicant tracking system. Again, making it very, very easy for these people to raise their hand. But the key with almost all of these methods here is you need to respond almost instantly to high quality applicants. So we're talking about frontline workers. You're going to get a lot of applicants. You need to screen them quickly, and you need to reach out to them fast. And the rule of thumb is 5 minutes, guys. Now, most of you are going to cringe. What? How do you do that? Well, I give people the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, same day. You need to reach out to them the same day. So if the tools you have in place don't allow you to screen those candidates fast and reach out to them quickly and efficiently within the same day that they apply, you're missing out on the best talent, right? Now, how do you do that? So text messaging is number one. So make sure your tools, you're leveraging text messaging. So especially with frontline workers, the first response when somebody applies, I want to send them a text message. I'll send them an email too, but you want to send them a text message. The other trick there is leveraging self-scheduling tools. So we build self-scheduling tools right into our applicant tracking system. David, thanks for applying. Here's a short video to learn more about our hiring process and our company. And here's a link to schedule an interview. They click the link, schedule the interview. You get 3 reminders prior to the interview. Your no-show rate plummets, and your quality of hire goes up because your engagement rate, people are actually booking interviews, self-booking them, and actually showing up, right? Because the high quality people don't last, right? When you're doing social channels though, and you're doing Facebook, you really got to be like calling these people back right away. So you want to have somebody whose job it is to, when they collect that lead, that candidate lead on Facebook, you want to call them right away. And that is the key to getting through it. It takes a lot more effort, right? Higher cost, higher effort. But if you need to hire a lot of people and you want to hire blue collar workers, you want to hire a volume of them, and you want to do it cheaper than doing it with staffing agencies, that is one of the main keys to success after employee referrals and optimizing your performance on the job boards, right? So this is how
that's way more attentive than I would have thought. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a war, right? You know, unemployment's still really, really low. And again, when you're doing inbound strategies, you're going to get a lot of, you know, irrelevant bad candidates, and you have to have an efficient way to sift through them. And when you do come across a candidate, a resume that's interesting, you got to move really, really fast. And you got to have a machine in place to do that. Again, your other alternative, and this is just a must, is you need to have a really robust culture of employee referrals. And this, it takes, you know, a little more time to get up and running, but once you get up and running, get into a rhythm of it, it's actually quite low effort to maintain, right? So when you're dealing with an outbound, you have highly specialized talent. That could be a trade, blue collar trade, to an engineer or an executive of some sort, right? And you need to pull off an outbound approach. Here are your options, right? Cold call, cold email, cold LinkedIn, cold text. Whoops. In order to do that, you need to have a tool, you know, like, you know, we have over 500,000 people in our database. LinkedIn has over 1 billion people to search through. So don't be cheap. Get yourself, actually, you can be cheap. Get yourself a sales navigator, not a LinkedIn, not a recruiter light. Sales navigators actually, I find, cheaper, more effective, and easier to use for this type of strategy, because recruiting is a sales and marketing activity, guys. So that's something I probably glossed over here, right? If you want to solve frontline worker hiring, you need to change your mindset from demand letter to I am selling and marketing an awesome career opportunity to great people. Because we have great people working in our organization, and we're going to add value to your lives and our clients' lives, and we want you to be a part of that, right? But anyways, whatever you use, Sales Navigator, LinkedIn Recruiter Lite, or the expensive LinkedIn Recruiter, you definitely want to have that as part of your recipe for your outbound approach. Zoom Info is the best money data can buy. There's Seamless, Apollo, People Data Labs, some other good tools out there that are a little less expensive, lower barrier to entry. But Zoom Info by far, if you have the demand, it's worth every penny. In having that, because it's the best best data money can buy. We've tried them all. We've leveraged them all. These are all part of our stack and our search business. We leverage all these tools. Swordfish is where you get personal contact data. So, you know, if you want to avoid your competitors yelling at you for knocking on their candidates' doors, you want to, you know, use Swordfish. You can get people's personal phone, email, home address, everything you need about them, all their personal information. So you can do direct outreach, cold outreach. And then I also like to leverage resume databases that you can find on Indeed, ZipRecruiter, iHire, some other job boards or niche job boards. Again, depending on how niche your role is, there's a niche job board for just about everything. And there's a resume database generally attached to that job board. So these are great ways. Now, this is how you find the people. Once you find them, you get their phone number, their email, their social media contact, and then you cold email, cold call, cold LinkedIn, cold text. And it's really a combination of all these things. The more personalized you can make that, The more you leverage that employer value proposition and recruitment marketing content, so that when you're making a cold email to somebody, you can deliver something of value to them. Like, hey, come check out what 10 people in our company have to say about their career journey, right? Or the impact that they've been able to make in their customers' lives, right? That really helps go a long ways to make your cold outreach not this generic outreach that they get from every other recruiter. If it's very specialized roles, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because talking about frontline workers, but if you have an executive role or an engineer or some kind of highly specialized role in your organization, which you probably all do, get the executive, the hiring manager to work LinkedIn themselves. I teach this to executives all the time. 15 minutes a day on LinkedIn, do your own headhunting. And I've done this with dozens of people. They always make a hire within the first 30 to 60 days. And it's always a very high quality hire, because if I, the hiring manager, reach out to you, David, and I cherry pick you and say, hey, David, I'd love to take you out to lunch and just talk about the state of our industry and get to know you better. You are obviously an accomplished professional. I'm going to get a pretty high hit rate on that outreach.
Totally.
Right? 15 minutes a day, I could reach out to 20 or 30 Davids, people, my ideal candidates, right? I do that over the course of 10 days. I've reached out to 200-300 of my ideal candidates with a highly personalized message. And for me, the decision maker, not HR, not a recruiter, not a third party, boy, makes a huge impact in terms of the conversion rate from me sending you a cold message to you saying, yes, I want to talk and let's have a conversation, right? So this is the tool, the tool suite. You can look at other things. Honestly, we've tried them all. This is it, guys. Here you go. This is what you need to know. Don't waste your time with anything else, right? All right. Now that you've built a pool of candidates, you need a system for assessing these people to make sure that you're only hiring the best, right? So you need a repeatable system for interviewing candidates. Particularly when you're dealing with high volumes of candidates, you need predictive hiring assessments. We love integrity first. So I don't know an organization in the world that doesn't have some form of integrity as part of their core values. So why would you ever hire somebody that doesn't have high integrity, right? And frontline workers, a lot of times you'll train them how to do the job. All you care about is they're reliable and they have high integrity and they're just a nice person to work with, that they're willing to try, right? Other kind of core skill-based testing can be helpful in this process as well. Reference checks from past direct supervisors. I don't know why this is such an underrated strategy, but is it literally the most predictive thing you can do in the hiring process is speak to your candidate's previous direct supervisor, not HR. You're not doing a employment verification. You're speaking to their previous bosses. And there's a whole technique that we teach here. We don't have a lot of time to get into it in today's webinar, but if anybody wants to hit me up offline, I'm happy to send you some ebooks or share some content around this. Got tons of videos on this, but think about it this way. The person who leaves a trail of happy customers, their previous direct supervisors, they're phenomenally better people to have on your team than people who cannot get their past bosses to say nice things about it. It's really as simple as that. Now we offer tools to automate this process. So especially when you're in volume hiring, if I can't physically talk to these people, then I want to at least automate it and leverage an automated reference checking type tool to do that. And then I want to spend a lot of time leveling up my hiring managers and how they interview and how they're evaluating people. So candidate scorecards are a phenomenal tool. So we built that right into Discover to make sure, especially if I'm an HR manager, it can be difficult to hold hiring managers accountable to following a process. So what I tell hiring managers is you cannot hire somebody without completing this candidate scorecard. The candidate scorecard identifies the key qualities that we're looking for in that person. And it should be 3 to 5 things, usually not more than 5. Sometimes occasionally it might be. It should be well defined. scored on a scale of 1 to 5, and the hiring manager needs to defend their score. So if I'm looking for somebody who's highly motivated, say that's the thing, I need to define what I mean by motivated. And when David, you score me as a 3 out of 5 as motivated, then you need to defend why. And if you don't, you can't hire the person. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't. So David says, I want to hire this person. You say, okay, show me the scorecard. Oh, I didn't complete it. Doesn't mean like we're not going to hire this person. You say, David, I need you to complete that, right? And so if you get management backing, you're going to have to get management to back you in this. And I don't know a CEO in the world who will not, by the way, because I talk to CEOs all the time and they're like, I wish we did this. Because I'm sick and tired of the turnover and the work comp claims and the problems and the drama and using staffing agencies because we're desperate to hire people. Like, I'm tired of it. They're all tired of it. And this is one tool that's super easy to use. It takes the hiring manager 5 minutes to go score the person, defend their score. And as an HR person, it gives you a tool to hold them accountable to following a basic, just a simple process to making a better decision, right? Now, as a hiring manager, what I find when using a scorecard is I love the candidate. Oh, I thought they were going to be amazing. And then I sit down, fill out the scorecard, and I start to score the person. I start to try to defend my score, and I go, wait a second, I can't defend my score. Or maybe the things that I found out about that person, I start to reflect on. I go, wait a second, this person is not as good as I thought they were. So it's a way for me to second guess my own gut decisions and feelings and bias that I had in that process. So that's one hack that you can use to level up your hiring managers in the selection process. The other part is just getting them to move fast. A tool for moving fast for recruiters, HR, or hiring managers is leverage self-scheduling tools. You have a predetermined time slots that the person is available to interview candidates. You have a self-scheduling tool. You use that to book the meeting with the hiring manager or the next person or the recruiter. And it just takes out all that endless back and forth. I mean, I was just reading on LinkedIn today that the complaints that recruiters have, like, oh, we submitted a candidate. It took the HR 5 days to get back to them on the candidate. And then it took them 5 more days to get the candidate booked. The candidate's gone. Self-scheduling solves all of that problem. You like the candidate, give them the link, the candidate books the call, they show up in the next available time. That's usually pretty fast, and you've just streamlined your process, right? There's no back and forth, no, let me check my schedule. There's no, I'm too busy, or none of that. It just eliminates all that nonsense, right? Other tools for assessing, right? And applicable to really all roles. I tried to name every role I could possibly put in there, but integrity testing, again, for frontline workers, I just think is a must, but you can get into other kinds of behavioral, DISC, Big Five, emotional intelligence, cognitive ability, sales, leadership, pre-built. So we offer all of these in the Discovered platform, 30 plus different assessments. So it allows you to choose the right assessments no matter what the role is. One-way video interviewing is another great way to streamline a hiring process for managers. So again, another potential strategy is especially get a flood of candidates coming in. You ask them to complete, maybe a 1, 2, 3 question one-way video interview. Recruiter reviews that. They send the best ones, best resumes and video interviews over to the hiring manager. It makes it a lot easier for the hiring manager to make a decision on who they want to take the next step for. Human and automated reference checks. We integrate with background checker for background checks. So certain roles definitely got to have background in drug testing. And a big thing we like to teach really all executive and frontline management, HR, recruiters we train on top grading, behavioral interviewing, performance-based hiring techniques. Again, this is part of leveling up your hiring manager's ability to screen and interview effectively. We've all been there. We send over a killer candidate and the hiring manager rejects them and they just cannot give you a good reason why. They're doing it based on their gut and they're biased, and it's just terrible for everybody, right? So these are the suite of different tools. One or many of these tools are very, very helpful in streamlining the process. Again, you can get people to apply. You can automate asking them to complete an interview. You can automate them having to complete an assessment to move to the next steps. You can automate reference check. You can layer these in and throughout the hiring process. Again, when you pair that with really killer value proposition and content, you will increase the compliance rate. Your candidates will go through these processes. And we see compliance rates as high as 70%, right? When in a well-oiled machine. In a poorly oiled machine, as high as 30-40% of candidates will go through an assessment or a video interview or provide references prior to speaking to somebody, which is a great way to quell the high volumes of applicants and whittle that down to a much a higher quality pool of candidates much faster. And this 2024 is going to be the era of massive exodus of companies. So 84% of people are looking for jobs right now or open to a new job. They're going to be, you're going to be getting a ton more applicants. We already saw it in the tail end of 2023, but in 2024, you're going to be getting a lot more applicants. Your strategy's got to shift from a more desperate hiring situation to how do I automate screening and evaluating these people in a highly effective yet still engaging manner, right? A bunch of tools that we offer. So we collaborate with BGSU and Virginia Tech, the world's leading IO psychologists, to create and to validate a lot of the tools that we do. And we've co-published a number of papers and scientific journals there. We've got an e-learning course, Fact-Driven Hiring, Make $1 Million Hires. I strongly believe every hire should be a revenue generating activity for your organization. If we're not thinking about hiring as a revenue generating activity, then you need to change your mindset. We literally wrote the book on hiring talented team players. We've got thousands of articles, videos, ebooks, social media. Follow me on LinkedIn to get snippets or exposure to some of that stuff, or subscribe to our YouTube channel, or check out some of our ebooks. We are SHRM and HRCI continuing education provider. So particularly our e-learning, but any of our webinars that we tend to put on, you can get your continuing education credits towards your SHRM or HRCI. We've got 150 plus reviews on Trustpilot and Capterra. We're leveraging and installing some of the advanced AI tools right into the hiring platforms to automate and streamline recruitment marketing, content, screening, all sorts of different things to streamline the hiring process. How many times I've seen people delay recruiting because they can't even get a job description written, right? I had a client who took them 3 months to get a job description written and out the door and start hiring. Like, imagine how much productivity was lost because, it's still going to take, 30 to 90 days to fill that role. You're losing productivity, right? Now we've got dozens of employee or client testimonial videos. So I'm a big fan of employee testimonial videos, employee videos. We do the same with our clients. They give us video testimonials. We have really 2 major services. One is the Discovered platform. It's a do-it-yourself. It includes consulting and the Discovered platform. Up to 100 employees is $333 a month, billed annually, and then 458. It goes up from there, but incrementally based on the number of employees you have. And then for organizations who are really need to make 3, 4, 5 hires in a quarter, or maybe 10 hires in a year, maybe who just lost their recruiter and needs to hire and train a new recruiter. We do a fractional recruiting program, and it's very low cost, $6,500 a month. Plus the cost of advertising usually runs around total of about $8,000 collectively. We'll work on up to 5 roles, unlimited hire. So, got to hire warehouse workers. You could be making 4 or 5 hires a month in just that one role alone. And we'll be working also on your executive roles as well, your specialty roles. That program comes with a chief talent acquisition officer, recruitment manager, dedicated US-based recruiter. And sometimes as needed, they'll have a nearshore recruitment specialist helping the senior recruiter. So some examples of how that program works. But if you want to know more about that or any of our programs, again, consulting, tech, and full fractional talent acquisition services, feel free to book a call with me or chat. And look, I'm happy to sit and meet with anybody free, totally free. Share with me all your woes. Let's walk through your current program. In 30 to 60 minutes, I will give you a full set of recommendations and things that you can tweak, that you can do yourself with or without me or my tools. One of our core values is we educate first in our organization. We believe in that strongly. We truly want to help you be successful in hiring. That's why we do these webinars. Look, don't have to do business with us. We're not, gatekeeping the secrets here. I'm more than happy to meet with anybody, anytime, and help dissect their current program and offer a set of actionable things that you can begin to do tomorrow to begin to make an impact, especially if you're dealing with frontline workers, right? Or even executive roles. Again, like I said, I teach my friends how to hire for specialty and executive roles, and they all make high class hires within 30 to 60 days, and they don't pay $30,000 or $40,000 to recruiters because they follow the recipe, right?
Yeah, and I've seen that firsthand, everybody. So if whatever your recruiting issue is, Fletcher will definitely spend some time, give you some advice, and I think as your motto is more or less, what comes around goes around, and it might not be right for you now, but it might be right for you later. So feel free to pick a brain there.
Or tell a friend, about us who didn't show up today. But no, see, I'm really serious. I mean, just happy to help. That's why we publish so much content. We do so many things. And I mean, I gave you guys a recipe today, right? Like, we have whatever, an hour to do this, but literally that is the recipe, tried and true, done over and over and over and over and over again, right? And, some of those things are easier to enact and execute than others. Again, you don't have to solve all the world's problems instantly. Take one of those things and just do one of them a little bit better, right?
Yeah, and just to answer a question, the presentation will be available. I just have to upload it, edit it, and all those good things. And wherever you're reading it, there'll be a description and contact information on how to get in touch with Fletcher if you so choose to. So
we got a few minutes. Somebody throw me a curveball. Give me the hardest problem you're dealing with. Let's talk about it. Or book a call with me. I'll talk about your hardest problem 30 minutes with you personally if you want. But no, I always love a good case study, and I love a hard problem. David, do you have any thing on your?
How would you hire it? It's not for frontline workers, but how would you hire it? How would you hire a hard position for a company with a bad reputation?
So it goes back to the employer value proposition. So you want to spend the time, create those recruitment marketing. You don't need me to do it for you, but obviously, spending the time to do it, but you can just pull out your freaking cell phone, interview your longstanding employees, the people who love working there, the people who have had career growth, people that it's had an impact in their lives, people who are impacting your clients' lives. And just, ask them those two questions. Or hit me up and I can give you a script of questions. There's like 4 or 5 questions that I use when we're doing these for people, right? And start there, right? So, create some content to combat that. Now, that content, then, digest it, get it transcribed, throw it through ChatGPT, create snippet content out of it. Now, when you're getting the, negative reviews, right? Respond to them and respond positively, and don't be defensive. Whatever you do, take ownership and say, hey, look, this is an area for improvement, and here are things that we're doing. And on the other side of that, hey, we do have a population of people who have worked here for 5 years, 10 years, and this is the kind of impact that it's made on their lives. And we are committed to only allowing highly talented, good-natured team players. So part of and this is the journey. If you have a bad employee reputation, you got to be committed to only hiring people with high integrity, good attitudes, who are retainable people, right? And so you may be desperate, and so desperation is a downward spiral, right? You're gonna have to bite the bullet and stop being desperate and start scrutinizing who you hire and not allowing what we call problem generators, talented terrors, or culture vampires into your organization just because you're desperate to fill a role, right? Because now you just keep perpetuating that problem, because when you let more of those people in, because those are the only people who are applying or accepting your job offers, you just keep shooting yourself in the foot over and over and over again. So one is find the good stories, tell them louder than the negative ones, take ownership of the problem, and be clear about the action steps that you're doing to resolve it, and stop allowing culture vampires, problem generators, and talented terrors into your organization. And in a relatively short period of time, you will turn the ship around.
Totally. We did have a question here too, Fletcher. Have you seen industries respond or open up to youth apprenticeship?
Yes, absolutely. I worked with a guy, Rob Wilsey, a while back, and he was doing this in Michigan in the manufacturing sector, and they basically had an internship program where they would go in and teach these young people how to use the CNC machines and the different equipment that you see in a traditional modern manufacturing environment. And then they would go out and employers would pay them pretty penny for these people, but they had a training program. You can do things like that within your own organization. The thing, I love it. I mean, I think you absolutely got to be doing it. You got to get leadership's buy-in. Because look, if you hire people for integrity and attitude, and you can even throw in some core aptitude type assessments like cognitive ability type testing or basic skill type testing. So you want to screen the interns, the apprentices. You need to pay them typically, prevailing wage, like $20, $15, $20 an hour, depending on where you're at. Midwest, you can probably get around that, somewhere in that 15 to 20 range. On the coast, you're probably in the $20 to $25 an hour range. But that's probably still substantially less than your highly skilled 10-year, veteran folks. So you're getting a discount on labor. But if you hire for integrity, attitude, and competency, the core competency, not do they know how to use the CNC machine, because they don't. If you hire for those things, and then you have a really great training and onboarding program, and you're intentional about it, and then you're selling that as a value proposition, like, hey, we're going to train you how to work in a modern manufacturing, modern logistics, modern whatever, environment, or nursing or healthcare environment, right? Those are probably some of the three big sectors you see this in. We're going to teach you these skills that you can use with us or without us. But if you have a great culture and you're supportive and you're helping them in their career growth, and there's a trajectory for them to make more money, have a better quality of life, these people will stick with you and be very, very loyal. And, it's a lot easier to train people who have high integrity and high aptitude than it is to hire the problem generators, talented terrors, and culture vampires that have been dismissed from your competitors.
And there's another question too. Do you service Canada? And I have a feeling the person that answered that question might know the engineering firm I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, everything we do here is applicable in Canada, and so I'm not an HR person. I'm a talent acquisition guy. So, I mean, you guys have slightly different rules and regulations in Canada on the HR side. All of those things there, but these strategies, none of these, there's no difference in terms of compliance or rules, things like that. Assessments are totally valid and legitimate and can be used in Canada. Integrity testing, by all means. Again, there's even some specialized versions of these tools for the Canadian markets. So we have a nice chunk of clients in Canada, and Culturally, we deal with the same things in the US as Canada. And so there are a few other sources of candidates in Canada, but the same job boards are producing the same results. It's very, very similar environment. So I'm more than happy to support, Canadian customers. And particularly on our software side, we have a number of Canadian customers. We have a lot of international clients, period, on the software side of our business.
Some of your assessments are in like 26 languages, right?
Yeah, yeah. So particularly the integrity and some of the frontline ones, are there. So the French Canadian, side of it, can still leverage some of those tools, right?
All right. If there's no further questions, and if you have any that you think about at a later date, you can certainly reach out. But thank you very much, Fletcher. That's a good roadmap. The presentation will be sent to you. It'll be back and out to you within 48 hours. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your busy day to spend with us.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
All right, take care.